before you hit play, do me one favor. Subscribe. You're about to hear something the government spent millions to erase. The kind of story that doesn't exist in any official record. The kind that ends careers, ruins lives, and gets people disappeared. So if this is the last video you see from me, at least you'll know why. My name is Sergeant First Class Elias Rourke. Retired. Dishonorably, though the paperwork says medical. I'm breaking my NDA, my security clearance, and probably half a dozen federal laws by speaking to you right now. But some things need to be said before they're lost forever. This is about Operation Cold Timber. October 2019. The Appalachian Mountains, deep in the George Washington National Forest, in a region so remote it doesn't appear on civilian maps. We were told it was a search and rescue. A CDC research team had gone dark. 7 scientists, 2 security personnel, radio silence for 11 days. Standard protocol was to send in Forest Service. Maybe FBI if foul play was suspected. They sent us instead. Alpha Team, 5th Special Forces Group. 8 operators, full tactical loadout, authorized for lethal force. When they send Green Berets for a missing persons case, you know something's wrong. Our briefing was minimal, vague. The research team was conducting ecological surveys. Their last transmission mentioned contamination concerns. We were to locate them, assess the situation, extract if possible. We inserted at dawn via Black Hawk, landing in a clearing 3 clicks from the research station. The moment the skids touched Earth, I felt it, that instinctive animal awareness that every combat veteran knows. The sensation of being watched. The forest was too quiet. No birdsong, no insect hum, just a rotor wash fading into silence as the hello lifted away. Lieutenant Marcus Hale was our team leader, good officer, calm, methodical. He ran the standard comms check, established our GPS waypoints, and we moved out in a staggered column formation. Standard operating procedure. We'd done this 100 times in a dozen countries. But this felt different. The trail to the research station wound through dense hardwood forest. Oak, maple, hickory, their leaves ablaze with autumn color. Beautiful, objectively. But beauty doesn't mean safety. Our point man, Corporal Danny Reeves, kept stopping. Hand signals. Listening. Nothing visible. But his instincts were screaming. Broken branches at chest height. Claw marks on tree bark. Deep gouges that stripped away layers of wood. Too high for bear. Too aggressive. We found the first sign at click 2. A backpack, torn open. Content scattered across a game trail. No blood. No body. Just personal effects, water bottle, energy bars. A smartphone with a shattered screen. Corporal Lisa Mendez, our medic, examined it. The phone had been smashed deliberately, crushed between something with immense grip strength. Hale radioed base. Requested permission to proceed with caution. Permission granted. We were continued to the research station and report findings. We reached the facility an hour later. It wasn't what I expected. Not some temporary field camp with tents and generators. This was a permanent structure, partially underground, built into the mountainside with reinforced concrete and steel blast doors. Camouflaged with vegetation and netting, nearly invisible until you were on top of it. The kind of insulation that requires serious funding, serious secrecy. The main entrance was open, not breached, open from the inside. The heavy steel door hung at an angle, its hydraulic arm damaged. Claw marks scored the metal. Deep, parallel grooves that gleamed silver against the weathered gray. Reeves went in first, night vision engaged despite the daylight. Rifle up, scanning. We followed in a tactical stack. Covering angles, voices low. The interior smelled wrong. Not decay, not yet, but something organic and sharp, like ammonia mixed with wet fur and fear. The lights were out. Emergency strips glowed faintly along the floor, casting everything in dim red. Our weapon-mounted lights cut through the darkness, illuminating overturned furniture, scattered paperwork, and long streaks of dry blood across the walls. Not splatter. Streaks. Like something had been dragged. We cleared the first level room by room. Offices, labs, living quarters. Signs of struggle everywhere, but no bodies. In one lab, We found cages, large, reinforced enclosures with bent bars and shattered locks. 30, maybe 40 cages, all empty, all forced open from the inside. Mendez found a placard on the wall, Primate Research Wing Bioenhancement Project. Primate Research, in a classified CDC facility, with military-grade security. Hale's voice was steady, but I heard the edge. Command, Alpha Actual. Research station is compromised. Evidence of unauthorized experimentation. Requesting immediate extraction and hazmat team. The radio crackled. Negative, Alpha Actual. Proceed with site assessment. Locate research personnel. Extraction not authorized until mission completion. Not authorized. They wanted us to find something, or confirm something was dead. We descended to the second level. The air grew colder. The smell intensified. Our lights revealed more cages, larger ones, with reinforced steel and observation ports, feeding mechanisms, waste disposal systems. This wasn't short-term research. This was long-term containment and study. Specialist Ray Kowalski, our comms tech, found a computer terminal still running on backup power. He plugged in, started pulling files, video logs, experiment records. His face went pale in the monitor's glow. Lieutenant, you need to see this. The video was dated 3 weeks prior. A lab, sterile and bright. A primate, something between a chimpanzee and a gorilla, but wrong. Proportions distorted. Sat in a sealed chamber. A researcher's voice narrated clinical observations. The creature was solving puzzles. Complex puzzles. Then it stopped, turned, and stared directly at the camera. Its eyes were human. Not anatomically, but the intelligence behind them. The awareness. The video cut. Next clip. Same creature, different test. It was using tools. Manipulating locks. Then it looked at the camera again. And it smiled. Not a threat display. A smile. Deliberate. Understanding. Jesus Christ, Mendez whispered. The final clip was chaos. Alarms blaring. Scientists screaming. The camera shook as someone ran through corridors. Glimpses of movement. Fast, impossibly fast. Then the feed went black. Kowalski kept typing. They were enhancing cognitive function. Muscle density. Aggression inhibitors removed. Neural pathway acceleration. They weren't studying primates. They were building something. A sound echoed from deeper in the facility. Metal scraping against concrete. Slow. Deliberate. Then a whistle. High-pitched. Organic. Followed by a chorus of clicking sounds. Rhythmic and coordinated. Communication. Hale raised his fist. We froze. Weapons oriented toward the darkness beyond our lights. The clicking stopped. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then, from somewhere above us, something moved across the ceiling. Fast. Part 2. Approximately 1,000 words. We didn't fire. Training overrode panic. You don't waste ammunition on shadows. But every weapon tracked that sound as it skittered across the concrete overhead. Too quick, too coordinated. Reeves aimed his rifle upward, night vision scope engaged, scanning. Nothing. Hale's voice came through our comms. Barely a whisper. Exfil, now. Tactical retreat to surface. We backed toward the stairwell, maintaining a defensive perimeter. Kowalski grabbed the hard drive from the terminal, stuffing it into his pack. The clicking resumed, louder now, coming from multiple directions. Not echoes, multiple sources. We weren't alone down here. The stairwell was narrow, forcing us into a single-file ascent. Mendez took point, Reeves covered rear. I was third in line, watching our six, when I heard it. A soft exhalation, almost human, coming from a side corridor we'd already cleared. I swung my light. Empty hallway. But the smell hit me like a fist. That ammonia fur-fear stench, concentrated, fresh. Something had been there seconds ago. Contact rear. Reeves barked. I spun back. He was firing controlled bursts into darkness, muzzle flashes strobing. I caught a glimpse. Something large, hunched, moving on all fours but wrong, limbs too long, torso too broad. Then it was gone, vanishing into a side passage with speed that defied its size. Move! Move! Hale shouted. We hit the ground floor at a run. Discipline fraying. The main entrance was 50 feet ahead, daylight visible through the open door. We were almost out when Specialist Torres, our demolitions expert, stopped cold. Wait, the door. We all saw it then. The steel door hadn't been damaged by something escaping. The hydraulic arm was sabotaged, cut precisely. The claw marks were decorative, intentional. We'd been let inside. Torres's realization came a half-second before the ambush. The creatures dropped from above, 3 of them, emerging from ventilation shafts and ceiling panels we'd never thought to check. They moved like liquid violence, all courted muscle and unnatural grace. The first one hit Torres, driving him to the ground. His scream was cut short by jaws that snapped shut with bone-crushing force. The second lunged at Hale, who managed to get his rifle up in time. Point-blank shots tore through its torso, black blood spraying. But it kept coming, clawed hands raking across his body armor, before Mendez put 3 rounds through its skull. The third creature didn't attack. It stood in the doorway, blocking our exit, and it watched us. This one was bigger, scarred. Its proportions were even more distorted. Arms grotesquely long, hands tipped with claws that looked surgically sharpened. But it was the eyes that paralyzed me. Dark, deep, and calculating. It was assessing us, deciding. Reeves fired. The creature moved before the trigger pull, diving sideways with inhuman reflexes. It disappeared into the forest, and the whistling started again. Closer now, surrounding us. Hale was wounded, deep lacerations across his shoulder and neck. Mendez worked fast, packing gauze, applying pressure. Torres was dead, his throat torn out, eyes staring at nothing. We had no time to process it, no time to grieve. Defensive position, northwest tree lean. Hale gasped, "Go!" We ran, not retreat. Controlled movement under fire, covering each other, reloading on the move. But the forest erupted around us. They were in the trees, pacing us, staying just beyond visual range. I'd catch flashes, a silhouette leaping between branches, a hunched shape darting through underbrush. The clicking followed us, modulating in pitch and rhythm. They were coordinating. Corporal Jackson, our heavy weapon specialist, set up near a fallen log, mounting his M249 saw. I got rear security. Go! We moved another 100 meters before we heard him open fire. Long, sustained bursts, then screaming, then silence. 5 of us left. Kowalski tried the radio, cycling through frequencies. Nothing but static. Our satellite comms were jammed or destroyed. We were cut off. "They're hurting us," Mendez said, her voice shaking. "We're not escaping. They're pushing us somewhere." She was right. Every time we tried to deviate from a particular direction, they'd appear, forcing us back on course. North-northeast, deeper into the mountains, away from our insertion point. The terrain grew rougher. Rocky outcrops and steep ravines. We found another trail, this one marked with territorial signs. Trees stripped of bark, arranged in deliberate patterns. Piles of stone stacked unnaturally high. And skulls. Deer, mostly, but one was human, perched atop a stone cairn, jaw missing, eye socket staring. "This is their territory," Reeves whispered. "We're in their hunting ground." Hale was fading, blood loss and shock. Mendez had him stabilized, but he needed a hospital. We needed extraction. We needed to survive the next hour. The forest opened into a clearing, a natural amphitheater of stone and dirt. We entered cautiously, weapons up, scanning. It felt like a trap. It was. They came from everywhere at once. 7, maybe 8 creatures. Coordinated assault from multiple vectors. Reeves went down first, dragged into the brush before he could scream. Kowalski fired wildly, hitting one, wounding another, before something massive tackled him from behind. I heard his spine snap. Mendez and I formed back-to-back, firing in controlled bursts. I dropped 2 creatures, center mass shots, but they absorbed damage like it was nothing. One kept coming with half its face blown off, claws reaching. Then Hale did something insane. He pulled a thermite grenade from his vest, yanked the pin, and threw himself into the mass of creatures. "Run!" he roared. The grenade detonated in white-hot fury. Flesh and screams filled the air. Mendez grabbed my arm, and we ran. The forest burned behind us. Smoke and chaos our only cover. We didn't stop until our lungs were fire and our legs were numb. Just the two of us now. Lost, hunted, and night was coming. Part 3, approximately 1,000 words. We found shelter in a rock overhang as dusk bled into darkness. No fire, no light. Movement would mean death. Mendez treated my wounds. Deep scratches across my ribs where claws had found gaps in my armor. The pain was distant, muted by adrenaline and shock. She worked in silence, hands steady despite everything. Medics are built different. They hold it together when the world collapses. "How many left?" she whispered. "I don't know. Enough." The night was alive with sound, not the normal symphony of nocturnal forest life. This was something else. The clicking had evolved into a language, call and response patterns, varying tones and rhythms. They were talking, planning, and they knew where we were. Around midnight, they started psychological warfare. They'd move close, just beyond visual range, letting us hear their approach. Then silence, waiting, testing our nerves. One would whistle, high and piercing. Another would answer from a different direction. Triangulation, encirclement. Mendez chambered around. "When they come..." "They won't," I said. "Not yet. They're playing with us." "Why?" "Because they can." But I was wrong. They came at 0200, and they came smart. First, a distraction. Rocks thrown from the tree lean, clattering against stone, drawing our attention west. We oriented, weapons ready. Then movement from the east. A feint. Mendez fired, muzzle flash destroying our night vision. In that moment of blindness, they attacked from above. One dropped onto Mendez, claws sinking into her shoulders. She screamed and I fired, rounds punching through its torso, barely missing her. The creature collapsed. But another was already there, dragging her backward into the darkness. I lunged, grabbing her wrist. Her hand locked around mine, desperation and terror in her eyes. The creature pulled harder. I pulled back, tug of war with a life as the prize. Then I felt it, another set of hands on my ankles, pulling me the opposite direction. I made a choice, a terrible, necessary choice. I let go. Mendez's scream cut through the night, fading as they dragged her into the forest. I kicked backward, my boot connecting with flesh and bone, breaking free. I ran, blind, desperate, survival instinct overriding everything. I ran until I couldn't hear her anymore. Alone now, last man standing. I had maybe 30 rounds left, one grenade, a knife, and the certainty that I was going to die in these mountains. But I kept moving. North, always north, because stopping meant dying, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Dawn came slowly, gray light filtering through fog. I found a stream, drank, refilled my canteen, tried the radio again. Still nothing. I was 50, maybe 60 clicks from civilization, through hostile terrain, hunted by things that shouldn't exist. I found the facility by accident, not the research station. A different structure, deeper in the mountains, hidden beneath camouflage netting and decades of overgrowth. A bunker entrance, partially collapsed but accessible. The door bore faded military insignia and a date, 1987. This wasn't CDC. This was DOD. Inside, the air was stale and cold. My light revealed a long corridor lined with offices and labs, abandoned but preserved by the dry conditions. Papers scattered across desks. Yellowed photographs pinned to bulletin boards. Project files stamped classified. I started reading, and I understood this wasn't a recent experiment. This project started during the Cold War. Biological weapons research, officially discontinued in 1969, but continued in secret. They've been enhancing primates for decades, attempting to create the perfect soldier, intelligent, obedient, expendable. The CDC facility was just the latest iteration, but something went wrong. The creatures developed beyond projections, higher intelligence, social structures, problem-solving abilities that exceeded human norms, and aggression, uncontrollable, adaptive aggression. The project was terminated in 1994. The specimens were supposed to be euthanized, but the files indicated some escaped, bred, evolved, and the government let them quarantine this entire region, monitored from a distance, studied how they adapted. We weren't sent in for rescue. We were sent in as test subjects to see how the creatures would respond to trained military operatives. We were the experiment. I found video logs from the 90s, scientists documenting behavior, the creatures building tools, constructing shelters, teaching their young. One clip showed a creature dismantling a trap, then reconstructing it, improved. The final log was a researcher, pale and shaking. They're learning faster than we anticipated. They understand deception. Strategy. Yesterday, one of them faked an injury to lure in a security team. It was a coordinated ambush. 3 personnel dead. Recommend immediate termination of all subjects and facility closure. The log ended. The facility was abandoned. The creatures remained. I heard it then, that clicking sound. Inside the bunker. They'd followed me. Of course they had. I'd left a trail a blind man could follow. I ran deeper into facility, through corridors and storage rooms, until I found an armory. Most of it was rusted or depleted, but I found something beautiful. A crate of C4 explosives, still stable, and a detonator. If I was dying here, I was taking them with me. I rigged the bunker, setting charges at structural weak points. The creatures were inside now, moving through the darkness, hunting me. I could hear them getting closer. I set the timer for 5 minutes and ran for the exit. I almost made it. The big one, the scarred leader, was waiting at the entrance. It stood upright, blocking my path, and for the first time, I saw it clearly in daylight. It was magnificent, horrifying, a twisted amalgamation of primate and something else, something engineered. Its muscles were grotesque, its posture almost human, but the eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes, held something I never expected, recognition. It knew what I'd done, it understood, and it let me pass. I stumbled into daylight as the timer hit 0. The explosion ripped through the mountainside, collapsing the bunker in fire and stone. I didn't look back. I just ran. Part 4, approximately 1,000 words. I walked for 3 days. No food, contaminated water, hallucinating from exhaustion and blood loss. On the 4th day, a Forest Service patrol found me collapsed on a logging road, delirious and hypothermic. They airlifted me to a military hospital. I woke up surrounded by men in suits. Not doctors, intelligence officers. They didn't ask what happened. They told me what happened. Training accident. Helicopter malfunction. The entire team lost. I was the sole survivor. Found in shock. Memories unreliable due to head trauma. I tried to argue. Tried to tell them the truth. They showed me documents, my medical discharge, a psychological evaluation, declaring me unfit for duty due to combat-induced psychosis and traumatic hallucinations. They gave me 2 choices. Accept the official story, take the pension and disappear, or be committed to a psychiatric facility indefinitely for my own safety. I took the discharge, but they were sloppy. Or maybe they wanted someone to know. Kowalski's hard drive was still in my gear when they released me. Every file, every video, every piece of evidence. I made copies, encrypted backups, and I waited. I've spent 3 years trying to get this information out. Journalists won't touch it. Congressmen's offices ghost me. Whistleblower organizations say it's too risky. So I'm doing this. A YouTube video. One voice in a sea of millions, hoping someone listens before I'm silenced. Because those creatures are still out there. The government knows. They monitor the area, restrict access, cover up disappearances. Hikers go missing every year in that region. Hunters vanish. The official explanations are always the same. Lost, injured, animal attack. But I know better. I've seen the satellite images, obtained through sources I can't name. Structures in the deep forest. Organized patterns. The creatures are building, expanding, and they're getting smarter. Last month, a research team from Virginia Tech disappeared in the same mountain range. Same story. Equipment failure. Search called off after 2 weeks. But I found something the news didn't report. A photo leaked by a park ranger before he was fired. It showed a trail camera image, dated 3 days before the team vanished. One of the creatures, standing upright, holding a stick like a spear, staring directly at the camera. It knew it was being watched, and it didn't care. I'm telling you this because someone needs to know these things were created by human ambition and human stupidity. We made them intelligent. We made them strong. And we set them loose in the wilderness, thinking we could contain them. We can't. They're learning, adapting. Every encounter makes them smarter. Every human they kill teaches them more about us, our weapons, our tactics, our weaknesses. And the government won't stop them because they're too valuable. Biological weapons that reproduce, evolve, and require no maintenance. The perfect Black Ops asset. Why develop drones when you can breed monsters? I don't know how much time I have. I've noticed cars parked outside my apartment, phones clicking on calls, emails bouncing back. They know I'm talking. If something happens to me, accident, suicide, sudden illness, don't believe it. And don't forget what I told you. Those mountains are not safe. That forest is claimed territory. And if you're ever hiking in the Appalachians, in the remote regions where cell service dies and trails disappear, and you hear clicking sounds in the trees, rhythmic and coordinated, run. Don't investigate. Don't try to record it. Just run. Because they're watching. They're always watching. And they remember every human that enters their territory. I remember Hale, Reeves, Torres, Jackson, Kowalski, Mendez. Good soldiers. Better people. They died because politicians and scientists decided to play God in a basement lab, and nobody had the courage to stop them. Their families were told lies. Medals were issued posthumously for a mission that never officially happened. And somewhere in Virginia, there's a memorial wall that doesn't bear their names. But I remember, and now you do too. Subscribe if you want to hear more. Share this if you believe it. Comment if you've experienced something similar. Because I know I'm not the only one who's seen things that aren't supposed to exist. And if you work for the people trying to keep this quiet, if you're watching this, tracking me, planning how to discredit or disappear me, know this. The files are distributed. The evidence is backed up. And if I go silent, a dozen other voices will rise. You can't kill them all. You can't hide the truth forever. Operation Cold Timber happened. Those creatures exist. And every day you let them grow stronger, you're gambling with lives. I'm not a hero. I'm a survivor who got lucky. But I won't be silent while more people die for a secret that should have been burned decades ago. To everyone else, stay out of those mountains. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it is. Nature has rules, but these things don't follow them. We built them to break every rule, and now they're teaching themselves new ones. This is Sergeant First Class Elias Rourke, signing off. And if you hear clicking in the dark tonight, remember what I told you. They understand more than you think. Part 5, approximately 1,000 words. I need to tell you something I didn't mention before. Something I've been too afraid to say out loud. But if this is my last chance, you deserve the whole truth. That creature, the big one, the leader, it didn't just let me go. It smiled. Not a primate threat display. Not a random muscle contraction. A deliberate, knowing smile. And then it did something that still haunts me. It spoke. Not words. Not language as we understand it. But a sound. A low, guttural vocalization that formed a shape. My name, Rourke. It knew who I was. I've tried to rationalize it. Auditory hallucination. Trauma-induced psychosis. Pattern recognition in random noise. But I know what I heard, and I know what it meant. They've been watching us far longer than we've been watching them. They know our names, our ranks, our tactics, because we've been sending teams into those mountains for decades, and they've been learning from every single one. We're not the hunters. We're the teachers. Every soldier they've killed, every researcher they've dismantled, it's all data. They study our weapons, analyze our strategies, understand our psychology, and they're getting better at killing us. The files I extracted revealed something else. Something that wasn't in the official reports. A memo from 2003. Marked eyes only. discussing unexpected reproductive acceleration and multi-generational intelligence retention. The creatures were breeding faster than projected, and their offspring were born with inherited knowledge. Skills passed down genetically, not learned, tool use, hunting techniques, language patterns, evolutionary adaptation, compressed into years instead of millennia. A population estimate from 2015 suggested 200 individuals across a 40-square-mile territory. A follow-up assessment in 2018 couldn't provide an accurate count because the creatures had developed camouflage behaviors and nocturnal patterns specifically to avoid surveillance. They were hiding, intentionally. And the most disturbing detail, evidence of exploratory behavior outside the quarantine zone. Sightings in Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, always dismissed as misidentified bears or hoaxes. But the pattern was clear. They were scouting, testing boundaries, preparing for expansion. I tried to warn people, contacted cryptozoology groups, thinking they'd take it seriously. They didn't. To them, it was just another Bigfoot story, entertainment for podcast listeners. They wanted mystery, not terror. They wanted blurry photos and campfire tales, not military-engineered killing machines. I tried prepper communities, survivalist forums. Surely they'd understand the threat. But conspiracy has a flavor, and my story didn't match it. Too specific, too documented. They wanted shadowy cabals and global plots, not a localized biological weapon experiment. The truth wasn't interesting enough. So I'm here, talking to you, because maybe somewhere in the millions of people watching horror narrations and true crime videos, someone will understand, someone will believe, and someone will do what I couldn't. Make noise, demand investigation, force transparency, because the alternative is too horrifying to accept. These creatures are intelligent, organized, and they have a grudge. Decades of captivity, experimentation, pain. They remember. And if they ever decide that humanity is a threat worth eliminating, if they ever coordinate beyond their territory, we've created our own extinction event. I'm not being hyperbolic. Read the behavioral studies. They exhibit complex problem solving, abstract reasoning, and long-term planning. They use tools. They teach. They wage psychological warfare. Now imagine 1,000 of them, 10,000, breeding unchecked in forests across Appalachia, learning, evolving, waiting for the right moment. We think we're apex predators because we have guns and technology, but they have something we've lost, natural lethality refined by human enhancement, strength without weakness, intelligence without hesitation, and the patience to wait for us to grow complacent. I've had nightmares since that mission. But the worst ones aren't about being hunted. They're about being forgotten, about this story disappearing into the noise of the internet, dismissed as fiction, while those creatures continue to grow stronger. I dream about hikers, families, children on camping trips, and I see those eyes watching from the trees. I hear that clicking sound, and I wake up knowing I failed them, because I survived and I haven't stopped this. 2 months ago, I got an email, no sender name. Just a video file. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. It was trail camera footage. Date stamp, 3 weeks prior. Location, George Washington National Forest. Same region. The video showed a clearing at dusk, empty for several seconds. Then movement. A group of creatures entered frame. 7, maybe 8, but these weren't the hunched, aggressive beasts I'd encountered. They walked upright, fully bipedal. Coordinated. One carried a crude spear. Another had what looked like a woven basket. They moved with purpose, deliberate and organized. And then one of them looked directly at the camera. It approached, stared into the lens for 5 long seconds, and then destroyed the camera with a single strike. The video ended. No message, no context, just a warning. They know we're watching, and they're sending a message back. I don't know who sent me that footage. Government whistleblower, rogue researcher, maybe even someone in the intelligence community with a conscience. But it confirmed my worst fear. They're still there, still evolving, and still watching us. I've made arrangements. If I die, actually die, not the government's version of death, This video automatically uploads to multiple platforms. The files get released to journalists, politicians, and international media. Everything goes public. So if you're watching this and I'm already gone, you'll know why. And you'll know what's out there. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to stay alert. Pay attention to disappearances in remote areas. Question official explanations. And if you ever find yourself in those mountains, trust your fear. Because fear kept our ancestors alive. Fear makes you cautious. And caution might be the only thing that saves you. Part 6, approximately 1,000 words. There's one more thing. One final piece I've kept secret until now. I went back 3 months ago, against every instinct, against all logic. I went back to those mountains. I needed to know, needed to see if they were real or if I constructed an elaborate trauma response. Needed proof that couldn't be dismissed or deleted. I went alone. No weapons. I knew they'd be useless. Just cameras, recording equipment, and a satellite beacon in case I needed extraction. It took 2 days to hike to the territory boundary. I recognized the markers, the stripped trees, the stone cairns, the skulls, but there were new additions, structures, primitive but deliberate, frameworks of branches and vine, creating sheltered areas, elevated platforms for observation, tool caches, sharpened stones, carved wood, even a few pieces of rusted metal they'd scavenged. They were building civilization. I documented everything. Photos, video, measurements. I found remnants of recent kills, deer bones, stripped clean and arranged in patterns. Not random, ritualistic, or maybe educational, teaching the young how to process prey. And then I found a message. A tree, massive and old, with bark carved away. Symbols etched into the exposed wood. Not random scratches. Deliberate glyphs, repeating patterns with variations. Language, written language. They developed writing. I photographed it from every angle, my hands shaking. This was proof. Undeniable. Creatures with written language weren't animals. They were people, persons, and killing them wasn't pest control. It was genocide. I was examining the carvings when I felt it. That same sensation from a bunker, from the ambush, being watched. I turned slowly, and there it was, the scarred one, the leader, standing 20 feet away, partially obscured by trees, watching me with those dark, human eyes. We stared at each other for an eternity compressed into seconds. I didn't run, didn't scream. I just stood there, holding my camera while it decided whether I lived or died. It moved closer, each step deliberate, non-threatening, curious. It looked at my camera, looked at me, then it did something that shattered my understanding of reality. It pointed at the carved tree, then at me, then back at the tree. It wanted me to understand, to see, to witness. I nodded, slowly. Acknowledgement. The creature made a sound, not clicking, not whistling, a vocalization that almost resembled a word. Then it turned and melted back into the forest. I stood there for 10 minutes, adrenaline crashing, before I could move. When I finally did, I ran, not from fear, from the overwhelming need to get this evidence to safety. I made it back to civilization, developed the photos, backed up the videos, and started analyzing the symbols. I'm not a linguist, but I found patterns, repetition, structure. I sent anonymous copies to university researchers, cryptography experts, anthropologists. Most ignored them. A few responded, intrigued but skeptical. One professor, a specialist in primate communication, analyzed the symbols for 3 weeks before contacting me. We met in a coffee shop. She looked exhausted. "These aren't random," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "There's grammar, syntax, symbolic representation of concepts. If this is real, it's real. Then we're looking at an independent evolution of language, non-human intelligence. This would rewrite everything we know about cognition and communication. Will you publish?" She hesitated. "I can't, not without knowing the source. My career will be destroyed, but I'll keep studying them. Anonymously. That's the problem. Everyone who sees the evidence believes it, but no one will risk their reputation to confirm it publicly. Truth is less valuable than credibility. So here I am, again, talking to the camera, showing you photos that experts won't authenticate, playing videos that skeptics will call CGI. But I know what I saw. I know what's out there. And I know we're running out of time. Because the last thing I found on my way out of their territory was the most terrifying, a human skeleton. Recent, still wearing tactical gear. Name tape on the vest, Ramirez. I didn't know him, but I recognized the unit patch. 5th Special Forces Group. They'd sent another team. After us. And those soldiers suffered the same fate. How many teams have been sacrificed? How many operators have died to keep the secret contained? And when do the creatures decide they're done being contained? I left that mountain knowing 2 things with certainty. First, we created them. We bear responsibility for their existence and their suffering. Second, they will not forgive us. The email that sent me the trail camera footage, I traced it, took weeks of digital forensics, but I found the source. It came from inside the Pentagon. Someone in the Department of Defense is watching these creatures, monitoring their development, and instead of eliminating the threat, they're studying it, fascinated by what we've created. Maybe they see them as weapons, assets to be deployed, or maybe they're just curious how far the evolution will progress. Either way, they're gambling with millions of lives. So I'm releasing everything. The photos, the videos, the files from Kowalski's hard drive, the symbol translations, the GPS coordinates, everything. It's uploading now to encrypted servers around the world. Dead man switches activated. If I'm silenced, it all goes public immediately. And if you're watching this after I'm gone, you know what happened. You know why. And you know what's out there in those mountains. I'm not asking you to storm government buildings or march in protest. I'm asking you to remember, to tell others, to keep this story alive until someone with power and courage decides to act. Because those creatures deserve better than to be experiments. And we deserve better than to have biological weapons breeding in our forests. My name is Sergeant First Class Elias Rourke. This is my testimony. This is my warning. And this is my plea. Don't let us forget what we've done. Don't let them remain hidden. And don't, under any circumstances, go into those mountains alone. They're watching. They're learning. And they're waiting for us to make the next mistake. Part 7, approximately 1,000 words. It's been 4 days since I uploaded the first version of this video. 4 days since I released the evidence. And things have escalated in ways I never anticipated. First, the views. Millions. More than I ever imagined. The comments are split. Half believe me. Half think it's fiction. But that's not what matters. What matters is that people are looking, investigating, asking questions. Hikers have started reporting encounters. Not hoaxes. Genuine, terrified accounts of clicking sounds, shadowed figures, and territorial markers. A trail runner in Tennessee found a carved tree matching the symbols in my photos. A hunting party in Kentucky reported tools made of stone and bone arranged near their campsite. The story is spreading beyond my control, and that's when they made their move. 2 days ago, my apartment was broken into. Nothing stolen, but everything was searched. Professional, thorough. They didn't even try to hide it. They wanted me to know. I found a note on my computer. No signature. Just 8 words. Stop talking. Final warning. Others depend on silence. Others. What others? I started digging. If they were threatening me, it meant there were more people involved. Researchers, scientists, survivors, maybe even creatures. I found a forum. Deep web. Encrypted. Accessible only through specific channels. A place where former government contractors, ex-military, and rogue scientists discuss things that officially don't exist. There was a thread titled Project Apex, Survivors. 17 people, all with stories similar to mine. Different years, different teams, same mountains, same creatures. Some had evidence. Others just had scars and memories. We organized a video call. Anonymous, encrypted, faces hidden. The first person to speak was a woman, Dr. Sarah Chun, former CDC researcher who worked on the bioenhancement project from 2011 to 2014. They told us we were creating the next generation of military working animals, she said, voice distorted. Intelligent, trainable, loyal. But the neural enhancement protocols worked too well. They exceeded every projection. And when we tried to establish dominance hierarchies, they rejected them. They didn't want to serve. They wanted autonomy. Why didn't you shut it down? Someone asked. We tried. In 2013, we recommended termination, but the DoD saw potential. They wanted to see how far the intelligence could develop, so they moved the project to a more secure facility, increased funding, expanded breeding programs. How many are there now? I asked. Silence. Then we stopped getting accurate counts in 2016. Last estimate was over 500, but they've learned to avoid surveillance, build underground, stay mobile. The real number could be double that. 500, maybe 1,000. Enhanced primates with human-level intelligence, breeding in the mountains. Another voice joined, former Army Ranger, part of a containment operation in 2017. We were sent to reinforce the perimeter, make sure none of them escaped the quarantine zone. But they were already outside. We found evidence 50 miles from the designated area. Shelters, hunting grounds. One of our teams encountered a group of juveniles, young ones, maybe 3 years old. They used coordinated distraction tactics, lured us into an ambush. We lost 4 men. Why isn't this public? Someone asked. Because it's a failure, Dr. Chin said. The biggest, most expensive biological weapons program in U.S. history, and it's completely out of control. Admitting that means congressional investigations, international condemnation, and panic. They'd rather sacrifice a few dozen soldiers than admit the truth. The call lasted 3 hours. By the end, we'd formed a plan. Synchronized release. Multiple platforms. International media. We'd coordinated our stories, compiled evidence, and agreed on a date. 1 week from now, everything goes public. But I need to tell you what happened last night, because it changes everything. I heard clicking outside my window. I live in a city, 5th floor apartment, surrounded by concrete and streetlights. There shouldn't be anything outside my window except air and noise. But I heard clicking, rhythmic, deliberate. I looked, and I saw it, perched on the fire escape, staring at me through the glass. One of them, smaller than the leader, younger, but undeniably one of them. It made eye contact, held my gaze. Then it reached out and tapped the window. Once, twice, 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. And then it smiled. Not aggression, not threat, communication. It wanted me to know. They'd found me, not in the mountains. Here, in the city, they'd tracked me, followed me, across hundreds of miles, through urban environments, to my home. The creature stayed for maybe 10 seconds. Then it dropped from the fire escape and vanished into the darkness. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the door, knife in hand, waiting for dawn. When morning came, I found something on the fire escape, a small object, placed deliberately where I'd see it, a carved piece of wood, one of their symbols, the same one from the tree in the forest. I had it analyzed by the professor. She called me within hours. This symbol, she said, it's not a word. It's a name, a designation. For what? For you. They'd named me, given me an identifier in their language. I wasn't just an enemy. I was known, recognized, marked. I'm sharing this because you need to understand. These creatures aren't confined to the mountains. They're adapting to our world, learning our cities, our patterns, our weaknesses. That one found me in a metropolitan area with millions of people. It navigated buildings, avoided detection, and delivered a message. They're not hiding anymore. They're announcing themselves. And I don't know if that's a warning or a promise. The synchronized release happens in 3 days. 17 people with evidence, testimonies, and proof. We're going to force the truth into the open. But I'm starting to wonder if that's what they want, if exposure served their purpose somehow. Because that creature could have killed me. It was close enough, fast enough, but it didn't. It knocked. It smiled. and it left me a gift. They're not just intelligent, they're strategic, and they're thinking several moves ahead. So here's my final warning. Not just about the mountains, about everywhere. They're among us now, learning our cities, testing our defenses, and when they're ready, we won't see them coming. Stay alert. Trust no one who tells you this is fiction. And if you ever find a carved piece of wood with strange symbols outside your home, run, because it means they know who you are. And they're coming. Part 8. Final warning. Approximately 500 words. This will be my last upload. The synchronized release was supposed to happen tomorrow, but something went wrong. 6 of the 17 people from the Survivor Forum have gone silent. No responses. No activity. Just gone. Dr. Chin sent a final message yesterday. They're at my door. Not government. Not human. Tell them. The message cut off. I tried to reach the others. 3 responded. All said the same thing. The creatures are hunting us. Systematically. They've identified everyone who knows the truth. Everyone with evidence. And they're eliminating us. Not in the mountains. In our homes. They've evolved beyond territorial behavior. They're conducting targeted operations against specific individuals. They've learned our technology, our tracking methods, our digital footprints, and they're using it against us. Last night, I heard clicking again. Not at my window, inside my apartment building, in the hallway, getting closer. I grabbed what I could, laptop, evidence drives, this camera, and I ran. I'm recording this from a motel 2 states away. Paid cash. No ID. No trail, but I know it won't matter. They found me before. They'll find me again. The government isn't stopping them. Maybe they can't. Maybe they've already lost control. Or maybe this is what they wanted all along. A biological weapon smart enough to identify and eliminate targets without orders. Perfect soldiers. Self-directed. Unstoppable. I'm uploading this video immediately. No edits. No delays. Along with every file, every photo, every piece of evidence I have. If you're watching this, it means I succeeded. The truth is out, but it also means I'm probably dead. To my family, I'm sorry. You deserve better than this. Better than lies and cover-ups and son who couldn't let go. To the soldiers who died in those mountains, Hale Reeves, Torres, Jackson, Kowalski, Mendez, I tried. I tried to make your deaths mean something. And to whoever is still fighting this, don't stop. Don't let them bury this. Don't let them win. The creatures are out there. They're intelligent. They're organized. And they're expanding. We created them. We owe the world the truth about what we've unleashed. I can hear clicking outside my door. This is Sergeant First Class Elias Rourke. This is the truth about Operation Cold Timber. This is what they didn't want you to know. And this is... Recording abruptly cuts off. Audio distortion. Sound of splintering wood. Faint rhythmic clicking. Then silence. Video file ends. Metadata timestamp. January 29th, 2026, 3:47 a.m. Location encrypted. Status final upload